Was this yet another conspiracy by Pakistan? Let's take that question to our guests this evening. We have with us Commodore retired Uday Bhaskar, Director, Society for Policy Studies. He's with us live from the National Capital. Also with us is Lieutenant Colonel retired Shafqat Saeed. He's a defence analyst. He's with us on a link via Skype from Pakistan. I want to come to you first, Mr. Uday Bhaskar. Commodore Bhaskar, phone intercepts now show that there were two boats that left the port of Karachi for Gujarat on the 31st morning. We've also now been able to access intercepts that show that the Pakistani Army and the Pakistani Maritime Agency were in touch with these two boats. What do you make of these developments?
Well, I would say that the latest intercepts that have now been made available in the public domain, which suggests that there was a communication link between the vessel in question and agencies in Pakistan. Now there is reference to both the Pakistan Maritime Agency and the Pakistani Army, as also a third point in this communication triangle, which is in Thailand. So I think prima facie, based on these inputs, one could make the conclusion or the conjecture that this was not any suspicious boat that was engaged just in illicit activity, whether it was smuggling or cargo that should not have been on board, but perhaps part of something larger.
Right.
And I think for me as an analyst,
one yes or no question: can we still call this a rogue boat or no?
Well, at this point, I would say yesterday when we were discussing it on television on your channel, we talked about it as a suspicious vessel because it did not stop when it was challenged by the Coast Guard, which any quote-unquote normal boat on a safe, legitimate passage in the Arabian Sea would have done.
Absolutely.
So therefore we called it suspicious. But today's inputs seem to suggest that it was more than that. Now whether we use the word rogue or whether we link it with something larger, I think would be based on more evidence that these Coast Guard vessels and the video footage would bring to the authorities.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Saeed, I want to come to you now. What do you make of these developments? Indian agencies saying they have phone intercepts to suggest that these two boats were in touch with members of the Pakistani Army and the Pakistani Maritime Agency. Can Pakistan now afford to refute these claims? Will Pakistan continue to deny its involvement in spite of the fact that India is repeatedly showing proof?
This is very unfortunate that whatever is happening these days, that is being portrayed as it is being given color, which should be spoiling the relation between India and Pakistan. Pakistan and Indian coastline and the sea between Pakistan and India is very frequented, lot of traffic, and a lot of ships roam around there. And as the Commodore rightly brought out, that it had a contact with the international linkages also, and it was not whatever. I think you should not view everything from that perspective from which you are viewing it at the moment. Everything that is happening between India and Pakistan should not be considered that Pakistan is trying to interfere or penetrate or intrude into India. That is not correct.
But Lieutenant Colonel Saeed, the fact that there were two boats that left Karachi is according to the Coast Guard and were headed towards Porbandar. They reportedly had explosive materials on them. We managed to get phone intercepts that suggest that they were in touch with the Pakistani Army. This couldn't have been a friendly visit.
You said yourself in the start of the program that these boats were not checked, they were not found. One of them caught fire probably, whether it was shot or not, because you were the only people there. Nobody else can. There can be no neutral reports on that. You have nothing. Why should you say it was explosive laden? There was no explosive. I would say there was no explosive on them. Or they did not stop, or they were shot at, whatever it is all that you are reporting.
All right, so of course the Coast Guard is trying to... All right, the Coast Guard is carrying out a search operation. They're trying to recover the wreckage to ascertain what was the cargo that was being carried by this one particular boat. Stay on with us, Commodore Bhaskar, and Lieutenant Colonel Saeed, now one civilian has also been killed and 8 injured as Pak Rangers opened fire on civilian areas in Samba sector of Jammu and Kashmir along the international border. Close to 500 villagers have been forced to move out of their homes from Kathua area of Jammu following Pak firing. Villages along the international border remain tense after Pakistan stepped up ceasefire violations. Pak Rangers targeted BSF posts with mortar shells and heavy firing. Most of the shelling was reported in Chiliari and Ramgarh area. There was a brief 2-hour lull after an overnight exchange of fire, where 30 BSF posts were targeted in Samba and Kathua districts. This ceasefire violation is the 5th by Pak Rangers in as many days and the 9th in the last 10 days. Apart from border outposts in Samba, posts in Hiranagar sector of Kathua district have also come under attack. Security agencies claim Pakistani Rangers are trying to push militants into Jammu and Kashmir and giving them cover fire. We have with us our panel of guests this evening. Commodore Uday Bhaskar, he's the Director of Society for Policy Studies. Also with us, Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, Defence Analyst from Pakistan, who's with us live via a Skype link. I want to come to you first, Lieutenant Colonel Saeed. Relations between India and Pakistan are at a low. Dialogue has been called off. Shouldn't Pakistan tread more carefully? There are constant provocations coming from Pakistan. 2 Indian Army Jawans have been killed. 1 civilian has been killed. There's increased firing that's being reported, not just from the LOC, but also the international border. Civilian areas are being targeted.
Now this is a conflict, and the conflict comes when the two sides have allegations, and the conflict exists because the two sides are not trusting each other. And I would say the solution to this is dialogue, and the dialogue has been called off. And you are talking of 2 casualties on Indian side. This is very unfortunate. Any casualty is unfortunate, but do you know that there are casualties on Pakistani side also? And the Pakistani side is alleging that it was a flag meeting which was ambushed. At the venue of the flag meeting, the Rangers Jawan were shot at and they were killed. So these allegations and counter allegations are not productive, whether they are from Pakistan side or Indian side. I think they can only be called off once the hotlines are activated between the DMOs and the government exchange. They interact with each other. And if the media trials continue and the allegations and counter allegations continues, this would continue. And the villages, not only on the Indian side, would be affected, Pakistani side villages would also be affected. So the solution to this is dialogue. It should not be called off. And I don't think that, don't make me say that India is trying to call off any sort of dialogue. Dialogue should not be called off. Dialogue is must to resolve this issue. Hello?
Right, Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, stay on with us. Let's get in a response from Commodore Uday Bhaskar, who's also with us live this evening from the national capital. Commodore Bhaskar, what do you make of these developments? Increased allegations and counter-allegations by both India and Pakistan, both the sides refusing to back down. But this is a particular low in relations. Civilian areas are being targeted, almost 500 villagers being forced to flee their homes.
No, I think the entire sequence of events that we have seen over the last few weeks has indeed been very unfortunate, and at the end of the day, the fact that civilian populations have been targeted is particularly deplorable as far as the strained bilateral relationship is concerned. But I'd like to place this in a larger context, if I may, Simi, which is to say that there has been anxiety, which I think is not misplaced on the Indian side, that both in relation to the elections in Jammu and Kashmir, as also the forthcoming visit of the US President, Mr. Barack Obama, to India for the Republic Day parade, that those constituencies and those elements that have been launching this proxy war against India have perhaps been trying to use this particular window. So if you look at what has happened on the ground, and I'd like to link these disparate events and also add the point that this is happening in a post-Peshawar context as far as Pakistan is concerned, and the fact that the Pakistani Prime Minister Mr. Nawaz Sharif and the Army Chief General Raheel Sharif have in public taken a very, very firm position about dealing with all forms of terrorism. So what do we see on the ground? One, the increased firing across the international border, which I would say is outside of the norm, because we have seen the two armies exchanging fire across the line of control. But when the paramilitary are now exchanging such ordnance, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Bhaskar, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm saying the paramilitary exchanging ordnance of this order, and now we have the maritime domain, the fact that a suspicious vessel has been identified in this manner based on intelligence intercepts. To me, all of this is indicative of what I would call as a deliberate attempt at increasing the turbulence and the kind of violence that we have witnessed not just in the last 2 years but over a decade plus. So I think for India at this point, the immediate sort of challenge is to ensure that no such initiative, whether it's at sea or at land, is allowed to go unchecked. As far as the dialogue is concerned, I think there is a case for India and Pakistan to be able to sit down and deal with these tactical issues at the appropriate politico-diplomatic level. Simi, I'm not sure if I can hear you or you can hear me.
No, Commodore Bhaskar, I've heard your entire answer. In fact, I want to take a question to Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed. So you're saying that there is need for dialogue at this stage, and Pakistan didn't call off the dialogue. I want to know, what are the efforts that Pakistan is making to revive the dialogue process? There are increased ceasefire violations along the border. You've had this boat incident recently. Also the fact that 2611 co-commander Zakir Rahman Lakhvi was granted a clean chit in the 2611 trial. What is the kind of message that Pakistan is trying to send to India?
Ma'am, I would not agree with you once you said that clean chit was given to him, that the case is still in progress. All that he got is a bail, and bail does not mean that he has been acquitted. I know that you understand what a bail is, and I don't think that the bail should have been considered acquittal, and this anxiety on Indian side.
Even a bail, Lieutenant Colonel Saeed, even a bail for someone who's being seen as a co-commander, someone who carried out a deadly attack on India that left 266 people being killed on the streets of Mumbai. How can such a person, in spite of the fact that India has repeatedly provided evidence in dossiers to Pakistan, how can this person be granted bail?
I don't think we can dictate a court that, right, they can't give a bail. If he was acquitted, you know that the government has gone against that grant of bail to the higher court, and the case is now being heard in the higher court. And you should not doubt Pakistani government's resolve. Whatever the court is doing, the Pakistani government is contesting that case. And this anxiety is absolutely misplaced. You should not doubt the intention of the government. And whatever legal battle is taking place, well, I don't think that once the case is under trial in a court, we can talk about it like that. And bail does not mean acquittal. I think you must understand that. And Pakistan, just for the sake of good relation with India, is contesting this case, even with the evidence which is not very supportive. I would say that because in your own courts, in your own media, this has been reported that there, I'm forgetting the name of that police officer, who had submitted an affidavit.
Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, we're not going to shift attention. We're right now talking about one particular case. We're talking about escalation of tension between India and Pakistan. Commodore Uday Bhaskar, I want to ask you, does it suit the Pakistani government that the focus is shifted from internal issues to an increasingly hostile Indo-Pak situation?
Has the audio gone again?
Commodore Bhaskar, can you hear me? Well, I will try and reconnect with Commodore Uday Bhaskar in just a bit. This is the big story that we are discussing. Thanks so much, Commodore Bhaskar and Lieutenant Colonel Shafqat Saeed, for taking our time and joining us in our discussion this evening. Does it suit the interest of the Pakistani government to increase hostilities with India? Does it help it shift the focus away from the internal crisis? Why is Pakistan constantly provoking India, and what should the Indian response be? This is the big debate that we're tracking on Headlines today.